Hi, Barbara Wally here, orthopedic and sports certified physical therapist, to talk to you about our next video in regards to nutrition and sports performance or high activity or exercise. Just as another reminder, I am not a registered dietitian and I am also not a nutritionist, but I do have extensive sports training with my sports certification. So I'd like to give you a brief overview of exactly what are good fats and carbs and proteins to eat. So if you'll recall from the previous video, the best average breakdown for sports performance or the highly active individual is roughly 50% of your diet needs to come from carbohydrates, and 20% of your diet needs to come from protein, and 30% of your diet needs to come from fats. Fad diets, as a reminder, are not the best to undertake when you are in the middle of trying to train for a marathon or trying to improve your sports or activity performance, just as a reminder. Let's talk about our macronutrients, which are, again, our carbs, proteins, and fats. So let's talk first about our carbohydrates. So these need to be roughly 50% of your diet or more. You got to think endurance athletes or marathoners or triathletes are going to need to consume probably more than just 50% in their diet. But we're going to talk about complex, simple carbohydrates as well as empty carbohydrates. So complex carbohydrates are those carbohydrates that are less refined. They tend to come in more of a whole grain form. You want to think whole grain bread or brown rice or brown bread. They're unrefined. So typically when you're looking at rice, it's going to be brown rice as well. Also pastas that are not white or more unrefined will be considered to be more of a complex carbohydrate. These complex carbohydrates take a lot longer to digest, and they are not taken up into our system immediately like a more simple carbohydrate. So think honey or sugar, sodas, candy as well, even our white, more processed pastas and rices and breads, as well as soda. So these are good for fast sugar uptake. These can be very helpful when you're talking about mid-marathon or mid-exercise or directly after exercise when you need a quick energy source. So they're not all bad. It's just you have to consider how much of these you are consuming on a day-to-day basis when you don't need this quick uptake of sugar. And then there's, of course, the empty carbohydrates. These are the ones we all love. Desserts are, in essence, carbohydrates with very little to no nutritional value. Sugar, processed foods, sodas, we all know those aren't great for us. We don't have to abstain entirely, but they're going to be more of our empty carbohydrates. Let's talk next about our protein macronutrient, which is roughly 20% of the active or athletic population. So the recommendation is 1.4 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day. There is very little evidence to consume more than that. You cannot just have protein or large amounts of supplemental protein. So you really need to make sure there's a balance to your diet. And when we talk about proteins, we're talking about our lean meats, chicken, turkey, pork, or lean red meats, as well as fish, shellfish, and seafood. Dairy is a great source of protein as well, including milk, cheese, and yogurt, and eggs, legumes, including beans and peas, nuts, and soy. If you are not a meat eater, you are vegan and are looking for good high protein options, avocados produce a lot of protein in the diet. Kale, quinoa, spinach, and chia seeds. And the best thing about quinoa, it's not a grain. It's actually considered to be more in the legume family. It produces in one serving 40 grams of protein, and that is about the same as what you get out of a 6-ounce steak. So quinoa is fantastic for your diet, whether you are a vegetarian, vegan, or a meat eater. Let's talk about fats. Fats should be roughly 30% of your diet if you are highly active or involved with sports performance. This is a primary source of energy at rest and with low intensity exercise. It's essential to eat for sports performance. You can't completely restrict fat from your diet if you want to be able to exercise and be highly active. If you restrict a lot of fat from your diet and you try to exercise, that can oftentimes lead to very low energy and performance. Burning fat will not spot lose fat. That's something to remember. A lot of people will want to exercise thinking that they're going to reduce the fat in their thighs, but that's not how it works. When you lose fat, you lose fat from your entire body, so you cannot just spot train to lose fat. But you don't eat high fat pre-workout. So typically what you want to think with fat is you want to eat it in your diet throughout the day and beyond 2 to 3 hours prior to your participation in sport. You want food to be virtually emptied from your belly so that you don't have that bloated feeling as well. So you really want to think like hours before, hours after your workout to eat more of the fats in your diet. And then there's, of course, the monosaturated, polysaturated, and saturated fats. And I'm terrible at remembering these either. So let's just go ahead and review them. So monounsaturated fats are our avocados, nut butters like peanut butter or almond butter, nuts, oils, including avocado, canola oil, and olive oil, as well as salad dressings with those oils. Polyunsaturated fats are more our fish, our margarine. You got to be careful with the trans fats and the margarines because it's more of a processed form of fat. Nuts and oils involving corn, cottonseed, sesame, and soybean oil, and salad dressings with those oils. Now, our saturated fats are the fats that tend to be not as good for us. Those are our bacons. Who doesn't love bacon or enjoy it on some level? Butter. Older recipes called for tallow or lard, but those are also considered to be saturated fats. Creams, half and half. And remember, coconut oil is considered to be a saturated fat. There was a large fad a few years ago and even currently with coconut oil, but you have to be careful with your consumption of coconut oil because it is a less good for you fat. Also cream cheese, and then any salad dressings or oils that are made out of coconut, palm, or palm kernel oil. And also any vegetarians or vegans out there need to be very careful about their consumption of these plant-based oils, coconut, palm, and palm kernel oil. They're not as good for you as, say, olive oil. But let's talk about during exercise. What should you be consuming during exercise? Well, those more simple carbohydrates are actually great. You'll get a quick uptake of that energy into your system. They're easier to digest. So gels, goos are very popular because they're easy to consume. You can squeeze them into your mouth. And bars or drinks are great. So essentially, if you're going to exercise or be active for say greater than 60 to 90 minutes, you really need to be consuming some kind of sugar during your activity. And then let's talk about post-exercise. So post-exercise is again a simple carbohydrate would be great, or electrolyte beverages, maybe that also have a simple carbohydrate such as sugar in it. So think a low sugar Gatorade or Powerade, but also this is a great opportunity to eat protein, so maybe something like a protein bar as well. So in summary, don't forget, 50% of your diet on average needs to be carbohydrates, 20% protein, 30% fats. You want to stick with your lean proteins, your lean animal meats. You want to think fresh fruits and vegetables. Quinoa is a fantastic source of protein, as well as kale, chia seeds, avocado. You do need fat in your diet if you're going to be active. So before your exercise, about 2 to 3 hours prior is when you really need to make sure you're consuming your fats in your diet. Don't forget your plant sources of oils and fat, and be very careful about your consumption of coconut oil. It's actually a saturated fat that's not as good for you. It's considered in the same category as bacon. And to make sure you are consuming your simple carbohydrates during and after your exercise, especially if you're doing, say, more than 60 to 90 minutes, especially high intensity. But I hope this is really helpful. The next video will be talking specifically about hydration. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.